I 29 male was dating my girlfriend, 25 female.
At the time of my uncle's passing, he was like a father figure to me. So this loss hit me hard. I didn't have my father growing up, but his brother stepped in to be the example that I needed when he died. I was stuck with this terrible feeling like he didn't get to teach me everything I needed to know. I felt lost. It was hard for me to function, and I knew I wasn't there for my girlfriend. Like I normally was, we used to go out often and make each other laugh, but neither of those things were happening. She wasn't afraid to share her disappointment in my behavior. She said I wasn't amounting to the man she needed to have by her side because of this. She suggested we take a break until I was over it. This was the last thing I wanted, and don't think I didn't realize how heartless my girlfriend was being. It was red flag central over here. But at this point, I had very little mental capacity to handle any deep, honest conversations. I could hardly formulate thoughts, but I knew I wanted her to be there for me. I wanted her to sleep over and take care of me until I saw hope in the future. But she didn't volunteer. She did the opposite by leaving me. I guess a part of me was too embarrassed to ask her to stay or show any sign of weakness. So I let her go after my uncle's funeral. She asked if I was better yet. I told her no and started to see how selfish and inconsiderate this girl was. A few weeks later, I hadn't heard much from her, but I assumed she was still my girlfriend. I wanted to ask her out on a date, but I was still really sad, and I knew she'd be able to sense it on me out of the blue. My friend from high school called me up. It had been years since I heard from her personally, but we were friends online. She got to the point right away and told me she just saw my girlfriend at a club with another guy. She named him, and I knew who he was. My girlfriend and he were very close in high school, but stopped talking after we got together. Now, I was being told that my girlfriend was going around telling her friends that she and AP were best friends. Again. I called her and asked if she was seeing another guy. She admitted she was hanging out with AP, but it wasn't like they were seeing each other. She said he was there for her while I needed space. I told her I didn't need space. I needed her to come stay with me for a while because I was lonely and needed support. She hesitated and awkwardly said she would be home soon, but she needed some time to gather her stuff together. 2 days later, I was still waiting and she ghosted me. My high school friend called again and said she heard through the grapevine that my girlfriend spent the night at AP's house, where she went down on him after he did the same to her. Before I could even process this terrible news or decide what to do, my girlfriend walked through the front door with her stuff, acting like everything was normal and it was good to be home. I freaked out on her. I called her a bunch of names and said she was crazy for thinking she could play me like a fiddle. Like I wouldn't find out what a waste of time she was. She cried and said what they did didn't mean anything. She just needed that relief and love from someone. I said I did too, but it wouldn't be for her ever again. I said I hated her for betraying me when I needed her most. She left, dramatically defending herself by saying she couldn't have known I was going to become so pathetic when my uncle died. Then she told me to grow up as she drove away. I really hated her. By this point she said and did things she'd never be able to take back. She goes a hopping 2 months before calling me hyperventilating and crying, trying to make me feel pity and concerned for her. I asked her why she was calling me. So she calmed down a little and said she just walked in on AP cheating on her with one of her friends. She bowed her eyes out as she told me I was right all along, that she should have been there for me when my uncle passed. She said she couldn't have possibly understood what I was going through because until now, she never experienced heartbreak. I said I was glad she got to experience heartbreak and asked her not to call me again. She yelled as I hung up and blocked her number. I've been doing great on my own since she called me. I had a rebound reunion with my old friend from high school and worked overtime for weeks to buy myself a dog. Thanks to this unpleasant experience, I know that I need a spouse who cares enough to stay by my side through it all. Especially the hard times. Life isn't always peachy. So I might not try as hard to butter things up or sugarcoat it. I'll remain loyal and choose to love her. All I ask is that she does the same. I am so sorry. Your girlfriend abandoned and cheated on you at a horrible time in your life when you least needed and were least prepared to handle her betrayal. She did it. It's despicable of her to tell you that she'll be there only for you to hear that she slept over a PS house, as if that's not bad enough. She shows up and pretends everything is fine. That is a terrible, scary woman. She can't be trusted, and she needs several come-to-Jesus meetings to get up to speed on what it means to be a man's woman. Men need support just as much as women do when a man loses someone close to him. His woman should be the first one in line to support him during this time. The best thing she could do is take on a selfless and giving attitude for as long as it takes to help get her man through this. When he feels hopeful because of her love, support, or nurturing, he'll be able to give her what she needs. Anyone who wants to be in a relationship should go in with understanding, patience, and a willingness to compromise. I wish you the best of luck in your recovery and thank you for being an excellent example for us to follow. Now, let's get into our second story for today. My wife and I started hanging out with each other as teenagers. We are the same age at first. She was my best friend. But as we grew up, I started to believe she was my soulmate. Our hangouts became more like dates without the rest of our crew. After having intimate relations for the first time, we both wanted to get married. Each year of our marriage helped me to grow as a person. I was naturally shy and found it very hard to cope with change. For that reason, I didn't see myself ever traveling far from home for weeks at a time. But my wife added fearless adventure and hope into my life. We went to Hawaii, Canada, and Ireland. These were the top 3 places my wife wanted to see before she died, and we got to all of them before the age of 33. We used to go to clubs and stuff like that. When we started doing more athletic things to stay in shape. The thing we loved a lot and did the most frequently was mountain biking. My favorite part was getting home and sharing a shower and cup of tea together. We had several mutual friends we knew for years and friends from each of our jobs. We would have a mix of friends over once a week for games and drinks. One night, one man in particular was invited. I didn't know it at the time, but he was at P. We both knew him since we were 14. This was the first time I had seen him in a while, and he was acting particularly interested in my wife. He wanted to know all about what she was up to and her accomplishments at work. He was impressed and staring at her. The others noticed but continued chatting amongst themselves. I was glaring at him. He commented on what an amazing catch she was. I took ownership of her and told him I knew I was the luckiest man on earth as he took a sit from his class. He mumbled something that sounded like I must be too. Then I asked what he said, but he played it off like it was nothing. While the men played Texas Hold'em, my wife and the women played dominoes in the living room. AP was extremely competitive with me. I felt like I either did something to tick him off or he was jealous of me. He was furious when he lost. But my wife came in and patted his shoulder, assuring him there'd always be next time. He licked his lips and raised his eyebrows like he wanted her next. I jumped up and asked what the heck that was. He just played dumb and swore that I must be a sore loser. I leaned over him telling him that he was just ticked off that I had a woman he could only dream of. He jumped up.
So we both started screaming in each other's face.
Several of our friends, including my wife, separated and calmed us down outside. I was venting to my best friend about the things AP did and said, and how uneasy I felt around him. That's when I saw through the window AP pulled my wife close to him, hip to hip, foreheads touching. She smiled before she pushed away playfully. Only for him to follow her. She looked like she was being teased by someone she loved dearly. I was extremely disturbed. This moment haunted me for days. I tried to justify it any way I could, but it just didn't feel right. I laid awake one night at 3 a.m. until I decided to check her phone in the living room while she slept. I figured out her passcode and found my worst fears. All the evidence I needed was just waiting to be discovered on this little device she carried around 24/7. I never considered the possibility of her and AP having an affair, let alone one that was going on for 18 months. Her camera roll was filled with pictures of AP's junk. Her in lingerie, parted lips, tongue sticking out, anything. You can think of their messages spelled out everything, discussing their amazing sex when they did it, how they did it, how much they loved it, and how bad it would be if I found out. But that last part was just how my wife felt. AP wasn't worried at all. He was trying to convince her to tell me the truth so they could be together. He wanted her to live in his apartment, but she loved my house and pointed out the fact that AP made less money than me. I couldn't believe she thought about these things, but not about how I'd feel if I knew she was cheating on me. It was like that didn't matter because she planned on keeping me in the dark for as long as possible. After I got copies of their whole conversation, at least 100 screenshots and 10 pictures, and put her phone back on the nightstand, I laid wide awake on the couch. It felt like I forgot who I was when I found out my wife was cheating. I felt like a little boy who wanted to go home but home wasn't there anymore. It was the worst feeling I ever experienced. I had to keep going when she woke up in the morning. She was worried and concerned about me sleeping on the couch. She asked me a whole bunch of questions. Like, was I mad at her? Did she do something wrong? What happened? She's sorry, and so on. I didn't feel like anything she said to me was worth answering. I wanted to accuse her of so much that anything I said wouldn't do my pain justice. So I gave her the silent treatment. I refused to answer anything she said, so she started to freak out and say she didn't deserve this and stuff like that. I left the house to file divorce papers and contact a lawyer. He advised me to wait until she got served. That way, she'd be less prepared to defend herself or make up lies about me. I was home with her sitting on the couch with the television off. When there was a knock at the door, she was served. She looked at me with huge watering eyes, very confused. She begged me for answers. Now she got on her knees in front of me and wanted to know why I gave into her dramatic performance and told her she was nothing to me anymore. That's why I was divorcing her. I showed her the screenshots on my phone yelling that she was nothing but a lying-cheating ugly actress that doesn't deserve a man's trust. I promised her, I knew that for a fact because I was the man that trusted her, and all it got me was years of my life gone like a prison sentence with a ghost. Everyone we knew throughout our lives and in town found out about her affair and immediately cut her off or treated her differently. Now she was just the one that cheated on her husband and lost everything. She lost the house, she lost her friends, she lost the great life we had together. Now she just trolls Facebook and Instagram watching the people she used to know in person. She comments on anything I post, asking me questions all the time about anything. She's desperate for an answer. But I never respond. It's absolutely terrible that your wife cheated on you with a mutual friend that you both knew for years. It always hurts to hear stories like these because infidelity used to be much less common. A lot of women are being taught that it's okay to be selfish and demand what they deserve from their husband or man. Women should be taught that it isn't all about them. They aren't always right, and men are meant to be men. A woman's natural role in the relationship is to provide what her man needs so that he can function properly by doing her part for him. He in turn does his part for her. There's give and take that needs to occur. But none of these healthy exchanges can happen if selfishness and unfair demands persist. Always treat your spouse as an equal. Consider their feelings and the trust they give you to be more important than your own selfish wants and desires. I think you handled this as sensibly as you could, and I respect you. I'm glad the divorce went in your favor and that you still don't tell your ex anything. She doesn't need to waste any more of your time. I wish you the best of luck in life and thank you for sharing your story. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, Then please do not hesitate